It's a surprise present.
No job description.
No job description. You can leave, yeah, you can lower, that's good. Okay, we're ready to start. It is 6 o'clock on the dot. So I'd like to welcome everyone who's with us in person and everyone who's with us online. It's so good that you could join us tonight. Let's start with the good stuff, which is registration open today for the Texas Master Naturalist Annual Meeting. They have incredible field sessions this year. Paddling Spring Creek, going to Ormond Bayou, going to Brazos Bend, to St. Julian's Crossing, and just a plethora of bat presentations that they're going to do. And it runs from Thursday till Sunday, October 20th to the 23rd. So if you have not had a chance to register, do as soon as you can. Those field sessions have a tendency to book up really, really quickly.
Your canoeing is full.
Yes.
I registered just like an hour ago.
Canoeing is
your canoeing is full.
canoeing is full already. Yes.
Anything like that is
There's a
not.
few other ones that are too.
Yeah, they fill up so fast. So,
Water
Registration
goes
just went online this morning.
yeah.
Water goes first. So
Water
if you want
goes.
to canoe, you should book it now.
I have a question.
Yes.
I heard a rumor that there's a field trip to Mercer Botanic Garden.
Oh, did I forget to mention Botany Everywhere? Yes. The one at Mercer that goes to the prairie, where the prairie dawn, very rare, endangered flower lives and breeds, right? Then they're going to come back to Mercer and visit the Endangered Species Garden. Then they're going to go to the Mercer Botanic Center and visit the herbarium and the library. So it's botany everywhere.
Capacity is limited, sign up.
Yes, capacity is limited. So if you ever wanted to see all of the behind the scenes part of what Mercer does and the research, now's the time.
Man,
Yes. And that's on, is that on Saturday? Is that Friday or Saturday?
yes, Friday or Saturday.
Okay, yes, it's Friday or Saturday from like 8:30 to 2:30 or something. Yes. Okay, so yes, Mercer is definitely going to be prominently displayed. So to get to the registration, you can go to txmn.org, click on 2020 annual meeting on the top, and then there's a little bubble below that for registration. Your turn, darling. Microphone. Anybody here? Microphone.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Okay, I don't think any of my certifications are here, and Anita's in the hospital, but I have your pen, Anita.
There we go.
Would somebody like to take it to her?
Yes.
Would y'all take her pen? Okay. That way, I'll make sure she gets it. So then we do have a 250 hour, going on, 250 hour for Denise. I know you may not be up there, but from last month.
Yes, from last time.
And then we have 1,000 hours.
1,000 or 500?
500, sorry.
500.
I'm giving it double for the heat.
Double the
Okay, I'll take it.
The traffic did me in.
That traffic will do it.
And then I don't see anybody else here that puts a pin, so.
They'll have to come get it.
Yes, we'll have them at our next in-person meeting, so. And then as far as BMS is concerned, everybody's doing a good job. Interns are doing fantastic. So I'm not deleting y'all's stuff anymore. I'm letting y'all correct it on your own. So they're doing fantastic about correcting it on their own.
Awesome.
So just, that's exciting for me.
Got to train them well.
Right, and if y'all want, if you're doing anything out of our area, please get it approved by Brenda Reeves.
Right. Our VSP, Volunteer Service Projects Coordinator. Okay, so Terry Stin and Bill Worsham also have 500 hours that they received, but they're not here tonight. I know Bill's online. I'm not sure I saw Terry online, so congratulations, guys. Okay, so this, our very last meeting was to visit the Huntsville bats, and there are 750,000 to 2 million bats that live across from the Walls unit in Huntsville in an old cotton warehouse. And you see in this picture, go back. Let's do that again. You can see on the top of the building, there's actually trees growing on the top of this building. It's so old and wretched, and kites, Mississippi kites would sit in those trees and wait for the bats to come out and just swoop over and grab a bat for dinner. So you can kind of see the trees here, and that's actually the top of the building. So the Walls unit was going to demolish the building and try to exclude the bats, and had created bat habitats that the bats weren't interested in because they were actually designed for a different species of bat. So of course the bats were like, oh, okay. But what's happened is Huntsville started a bat initiative group, a conservation group, and they have met with the Huntsville powers that be, and the bats have been given a reprieve. Since we actually went up there. Yes, we're very excited about it. So we're not sure how long the demolition is going to be on hold. They really keep saying the building's about to fall down, but you know, if it falls down on its own, it's different than if they just go in and tear it down, right? Give the bats a chance to find another place. But as you can see in this picture, that's a guard on top of the guard tower right outside where the bats are. Okay, this is very important. I need you to take down this email address, not email address, this URL. George Mitchell Preserve is up for, I forgot how many grants that Niagara, let me note this down from the bottom. Next. There we go. Niagara Water does something called Procure Park, where they will give different venues $75,000. And one of those places that's up for this grant is George Mitchell Preserve in the Woodlands. Spring Creek Greenway Nature Trail goes through it. There are a bunch of creekside ponds there, and we're thinking about building a bird blind. That is not going to look quite like that, but you know what a bird blind looks like. There are many birds that come through and when they're migrating and visit those ponds. So it would give us a chance to kind of sneak up and watch them without them getting all stressed out. You can vote, and that's how they decide who gets this grant, is by votes. So if everyone would go online, you can vote once a day. You go to this URL and put your vote in for George Mitchell. We have a good chance of getting that. We're very excited about it. Okay. We have the Hummingbird Festival coming up on September 10th. Believe it or not, September's around the corner. We need volunteers to help with the Hummingbird Festival. We need them to help do nature walks. A script will be provided. They'll have numbered the plants along the nature walk, and they'll have an actual script for that. There'll be 2 shifts from 8 to 12 and from 12 to 4. In Monday's bulletin, I'll have a link for people to volunteer for that. Hummingbird banding, awesome. So if y'all haven't been to this Hummingbird Festival, make plans to go. And who's next? It's Christy.
I don't want to turn on the lights with the motion sensors.
So walk very
I just
slowly.
want to stay away from motion sensors.
All right. Thank you. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Mercer Botanic Gardens 2022 Student Intern Symposium. My name is Christy Jones and I am the Gardens Program Coordinator, as well as a Heartwood Chapter Texas Master Naturalist. As you may know, Mercer Botanic Gardens is now a Harris County Precinct 3 park, and I'd like to formally thank Commissioner Tom S. Ramsey for his leadership and direction. Our beloved Mercer has gone through many changes over the past few years. After Hurricane Harvey flooded the grounds, the Visitor Information Center, and the Botanic Center Herbarium, Mercer was closed for repairs for 7 months, and the Ramble and Story Lake areas remained closed until May of 2021. In April of this year, the 400-acre park was caught up in the largest redistricting plan in the history of the United States. This plan essentially cut the park into 2 separate parks, with the dividing line being Alding Westfield Road. However, Mercer Botanic Gardens, much like nature, is resilient and continues to rebound. Our park never closed, not even for 1 day during COVID. As a matter of fact, Mercer offered our community a much needed reprise from lock-ins, school closures, and the uncertainty during the pandemic. Programs, outreaches, and plant sales continued using virtual platforms, and parents were offered new educational resources and scavenger hunts to actively engage their families in garden explorations. 2 new and modern greenhouses were recently opened, and in a few weeks, will receive 22,000 new young plants that will be grown and installed in the garden for fall and winter color. Our Visitor Information Center is currently being remodeled and expected to be complete by late November or early December, and will have a new fresh look in modern AV amenities, new arts and crafts style accoutrements, and ADA compliant spaces. We look forward to having next year's Intern Symposium and other exciting gardening and nature-based programs and meetings back at Mercer. Mercer wouldn't be the park today without partnerships with community groups such as the Texas Master Naturalists. Over the years, they have contributed thousands of hours of valued volunteer time and tasks, such as tending to the Texas Natives and Endangered Species Garden, database management in the herbarium, plant sales, assist in our Beyond Bees program, and much, much more. Thank you to those in the room and in the audience who are Texas Master Naturalists. And that, my friends, is the state of Mercer at this time. Please continue to support the efforts of Botanic Gardens, especially the ones that are free to the public, in an effort to continue to educate and inspire the next generation of gardeners and conservationists. And now I introduce you to Linda Costanzo, our parks curator, who will introduce you to this summer's intern presenters. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Linda Costanzo. I'm the curator at Mercer Botanic Gardens, also a Heartwood chapter Texas Master Naturalist. And I'd like to introduce you to our staff that's here tonight. First, my colleague, Carrie Hernandez. Come on, Carrie, stand up and wave. Assistant curator, Mercer Botanic Gardens, and the best birthday present I ever had. Great addition. Carrie has been the full-time mentor, teacher, and friend to this summer's interns. Anita Tiller is our botanist at Mercer Botanic Gardens. Unfortunately, she can't be with us in person this evening, but we hope she is still with us by Zoom. Anita, we love you and we miss you. Get well soon. Anita and Carrie together have created and coordinated a comprehensive, informative, and engaging educational program that gives our interns a hands-on sampling of real-life application and a glimpse into career possibilities in conservation. I'd like to introduce you to Zoe Matranga. Yep, Zoe. Zoe's a herbarium conservation summer intern. Zoe's a graduate of Rice University with a Bachelor of Arts in Humanities. currently a senior at Sam Houston State, because one degree is not enough. Now she's studying her degree for plant and soil science. Zoe will graduate this December and has hopes of joining the staff at Mercer. And we hope that works out for us. Our other intern is Tiffany Ewerling, also herbarium conservation intern. Tiffany is quite the scholar as well. She's a graduate of Guy Sconzo Early College High School and also Lone Star College Kingwood with an Associate's of Art degree at the same time she's completing her high school. She will this fall begin her freshman year at Sam Houston State University, pursuing a Bachelor of Science degree in Animal Science and in Wildlife Management. Let me tell you a bit about what we do in our end of Mercer. In 1974, Harris County purchased a 14.5-acre homestead and gardens of a family, Charles and Thelma Mercer. Since then, that small property along Cypress Creek has grown to be a nationally recognized botanic garden, over 400 acres containing over 10,000 catalog plants from all over the world. Included in Mercer's cultivated section of garden, there's numerous plant collections of varying themes. One garden of particular interest to the Texas Master Naturalist would be our Texas Native and Endangered Species Garden. This garden is one of the nation's first permanent displays devoted to educating the public about our regional rare and endangered plants. Our beautiful wildscapes display also serves as an outdoor classroom for master naturalists, master gardeners, and the Native Plant Society classes and workshops. Mercer's dedication to conservation and education expanded in 2014 with the opening of the Mercer Botanical Center. This facility houses a botanical reference library, over 1,000 books, and a botanical art collection, over 2,400 illustrations, a herbarium collection, over 52,000 preserved specimens, documenting Houston metro area flora. As a side note, and very important, the library books, the botanical illustrations, and about 50,000 of those specimens are on a long-term loan from the Spring Branch Science Center, thanks to Dr. Larry Brown, a curator, a collector, and taxonomist. We also have a seed bank at the Mercer Botanic Center in partnership with the Center for Plant Conservation National Collection of Endangered Plants, along with the Seed Research Laboratory, where we're able to do germination and viability tests. We have a conservation nursery in our backyard. That's really come a long way in a short time. We care for 63 different species of Texas native plants there, 13 of which are endangered. We have the Botanic Garden databases housed in our building. That's where the records are kept for all the living and preserved plant collections. And we also have our garden sign and engraving shop there. Mercer Botanic Center also supports research offsite at the Harris County Prairie Dawn Preserve, and also reintroduction sites for endangered plants. NBC supports conservation education through internships with the help of our many partners. And before I turn the program over to our interns, I'd like to thank these partners. I'd like to thank Harris County Precinct 3 Commissioner Tom Ramsey, also our Park Administrator, Steve Dorman, our Park Director, Stephen DuBois, and all the Mercer staff, and our volunteers, supporting our interns, and for making this symposium possible. I'd like to thank the Heartwood chapter of the Texas Master Naturalist for co-hosting this annual event since 2015. I'd like to thank Bud Russell and the Timber Lane Utility District for letting us use this beautiful facility. Thank you for that. I'd like to thank the Friends of Mercer, formerly the Mercer Society, also for the donations and for facilitating our internships. Next, I'd like to thank several people and organizations for their generous support through their funding. I'd like to thank the Native Plant Society of Texas Houston chapter, the Knowles family in honor of Dr. Larry Brown, the Gibson family, the Global Genome Initiative Gardens Program, and the Center for Plant Conservation Rare Plant Research Funds. And finally, for nurturing and supporting our hardworking and brilliant young scholars that will present their work tonight, I'd like to thank their mentors, Charles Peterson, Paul Rowling, and Kathy Herrick. And I would like to thank the family and friends of Zoe and Tiffany. Family and friends, would you please stand and let us recognize you? And thank you for raising such wonderful girls. We have enjoyed them entirely a summer long, and I hate to see it end. Maybe it won't. So please now silence your phones so there won't be any interruption with the girls, and I will turn the program over to Zoe Matranga.
Which one is yours?
I'm there.
I am what I am. What I am. Yes. Yeah, right, fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
All right, I'll try not to get too crazy with the laser pointer, but no promises. I'm having a good time with it. I'm Zoe Matranga. I did my project on the air potato, Dioscorea bulbifera. I'll talk about that with y'all in a second. But first, wanted to offer my thanks again for the people who made it possible, for funding, hosting, and facilitating. Really, really grateful. I also want to offer a really special thank you to the MBC team, to Carrie, who has just been the most lovely person I've ever worked for. This internship has been such a blast. Linda has answered every question I've asked her, and I've asked her the weirdest questions, and she's gone out of her way to find me an answer. The same for Anita has been wonderful. I'm a huge botany nerd, and she's also gone absolutely out of her way to help me figure things out. So it's just been the most fun job I've ever had. I've had such a blast. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so a little bit about me. Linda's already given a pretty good background. I did come from Rice. After I was done with Rice, I got a little fed up with academia. I became a construction worker. I worked construction for 3 years. I did welding and pipe fitting. And I loved working with my hands, but I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. So I tried to find kind of a middle ground, and I found it in plants. I come by love of nature, honestly. I have, both of my parents were park rangers. That's how they met. And so really, really exciting to be at SAM in plant and soil science. So that's kind of a little. So like Linda was saying, we've had a ton of stuff to do in this internship in a good way. It's been packed with all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm going to talk about a couple of these with you. Tiffany's going to talk about the rest. As far as the herbarium, she's going to give you a really good description of it. But one of the things that we do is we create pressed specimens. And so, of course, going through specimen creation, we work in the endangered species garden, and of course, Mercer Botanic Garden as well, doing garden maintenance, but also doing signage, inventory, all of these things. We can keep track of what our plants are, where they're at. And that way, when you walk through it, you know what you're looking at, which is awesome. Same with Conservation Nursery. That is in the little back of our building, but I've just been putting my nose in where it doesn't belong, trying to help Linda any way I can, doing weeding, transplanting, propagation, all that kind of stuff. So it's been a blast. We've taken a bunch of field trips. I'm going to talk to you about two in particular. One of them was we worked with the Texas Invasive Task Force. I'm going to say that wrong again, I promise. With Kathy Herrick, predominantly removing air potato, which I'm going to talk about way too much. You're going to be sick of it. And also the Prairie Dog Preserve, which Carolyn mentioned in the beginning. Also, sort of coincidentally, before I got the internship here at Mercer, I was a part of a summer research project. It's a 5-year survey on East Texas bees through Sam Houston State and SFA. And so that just means collect them, take note of what's there, and that way going forward, conservation, they can pay attention to what the needs of the native bees are. So this is our Prairie Dog Preserve. We did a little bit of bee survey here. We did some trapping and sweeping. And also, of course, we have all of our incredible endangered species, prairie dog being, one of note. All right, and then I did herbarium work. You're gonna see in a minute, Tiffany's gonna give you a much more impressive number. She's our herbarium specialist. I got a little over 3,000 specimens, sorted, filed, taken care of. Like I said, there'll be more on that in a little bit. Internship bonuses, all kinds of cool things during this internship. One of my favorites being we got to watch 2 really wonderful volunteers, one of whom who is here right now, and also has answered all of my questions. Incredible. Requeen our hives at Mercer, which was so cool. So I had a little hand in that, almost nothing. Got to put some pine straw in a smoker, so that was pretty fantastic. Those had body lessons, greenhouse tours, thank you, Jacob, and breakfast tacos. Thank you, Larry, if he's on the Zoom, we love you. So onto mine, air potato, Dioscorea bulbifera, right? So I chose air potato because I have my professor who's part of the bee survey came working on the bee survey stuff. And I had up until this point been absolutely spoiled for choice. I wanted the herbarium and I was like, I could do Moraceae because I love the mulberries. I could do Lauraceae because my favorite plant is the sassafras. I could do Orobanchaceae just because it's fascinating. So I'm going through, I have no idea what I want to do. I don't know what would be helpful. And my professor showed up and I said, Dr. Williams, like, is there something that would be good, that would be useful? And he said, well, the USDA reached out to me about this plant, the air potato. They have a biological control agent, we'll get into it, and I am doing some research on it. If you do some research, maybe we can work together. It'd be real cool. And I was like, perfect. Also, air potato is the best plant name I've ever heard in my life. So I was like, deal, bring it on. So here she is. It's a really cool plant. I have sort of a sad looking little specimen that I dug up last night. Pitch darkness, got some weird looks with my little shovel. And a couple more over here. So there's just these big heart-shaped leaves. And then if you were wondering what air potato is, it's these little bulbils that grow on the back of the stem. Around this time of year, they'll start growing, hence air potato. So she's awesome, she's beautiful. She's also one of the most aggressive weeds ever introduced into the United States. So she is an invasive. Talk about that in a second, more background. So her genus is Dioscorea in the Dioscoreaceae family. This is true yams. So we in the South, we like to interchange yams and sweet potatoes. Botanists are shaking their heads about this. It's not the right thing to do. Different families, different plants, come on. So true yam family, 4 accepted genera. Depending on where you read, 630 to 850 species. Named after a Greek herbalist 2,000 years ago, wrote this huge, incredible herbalist tome, basically, that was used for millennia. So I actually had heard about the true yam family because my first degree is study of women, gender, and sexuality. And so the yam family has a really interesting role in our gender history and our recent gender history. So I'm gonna read you this quote because I like it. Few realize the great contribution made by yams in stabilizing or decreasing world population, but perhaps no post-war development has been so relevant in changing the lifestyle of those at reproductive age. So some of you may know this, some of you may not, but hormonal birth control that we have now was first synthesized from a yam. So pretty cool. It's all chemicals, now it's all scientists and labs. I guess it was then too, but First from yams. So there's all kinds of really cool human uses for yams. Like I said, hormonal birth control, steroids are synthesized from yams. Native American tribes used to use our native yam. This is her, our wild yam, Dioscorea villosa, to ease the pain of childbirth. So kind of a dual purpose there. Also nutrition in West Africa, the guinea yam, which is actually right here. Thank you, Jacob. So pretty. Is one of the most eaten crops in the whole area. Huge cultural and social significance. So very cool. A lot of bioactive compounds. These are really interesting plants. And so this raises the question, are they medicinal? Are they poisonous? Are they sometimes one and the other? There's 100 million research papers on what the yams can and can't do. Really cool. All right, so now we know the family. We got to talk real fast about invasives. For those of you hip to the invasives, I'm really sorry, it's only 2 slides. For those of you who aren't paying attention. All right, so right here, some of you might recognize this guy. If you don't, he's the emerald ash borer. And if you're a baseball fan, you might know about him because he eats ash trees, which are what MLB uses to make baseball bats. So kind of a big deal. Just absolutely decimating our ash population. So that's an invasive. So why do they matter? What do they mean? An invasive is anything that is from an exotic location that spreads rapidly and establishes itself, right? So why does it matter? They are biological pollution, right? So if you're money motivated, if that's your only drive, they estimate $135 billion a year is what we spend on invasive control, which is pretty significant. But if you care about nature at all, you care about invasives. So they decrease food and shelter availability for pretty much everything up and down the food chain. They interfere with our ecosystem processes, fire and nutrient flow, flooding. They can hybridize with natives, which creates negative genetic impacts, and they outcompete our natives. And this is what I'm really going to harp on for one more slide, because it causes a huge loss of biodiversity. This is important, right? When you lose biodiversity, you lose ecosystem services. You have less nutrients going back into the soil, soil maintenance, water purification, food, shade, a million different purposes. You lose your diversity in general. So if you have one species that controls the whole area and you have a pathogen that comes through, wipes it out, you're left with nothing. When you have a variety of species there, then things hit your ecosystem less hard. Special species die, again, less productivity, less niches filled, no good. And human losses, again, if you're money motivated or self-motivated, we get our food, our pharmaceuticals, these things we find from plants. There's so many plants that we found. We've made these medical breakthroughs. Look at the yam. And when we lose them, we lose biodiversity. And then recreational, you guys recognize my ants. Everybody knows these guys. Our fire ants. It's the worst. You got to do anything fun and you slam with fire ants. It's all losses. All right, so back to the air potato. Done, off my soapbox. So you're like, okay, biodiversity, whatever. All right, so we get to the real point. Is this thing edible? And my answer for you is no, with a caveat. In cultivation, some cultivars are edible, but they don't do well in the wild. So if it's invasive, it's not an edible version. So here's my comment. They're of value to nothing. Kathy Herrick, who we worked with the Texas Invasive, I told you, Texas Invasives Task Force, said this quote, and this is true from an East Texas conservation perspective. I had Linda, our biology teacher, pointed out to me, very important, there's nothing in nature that's of value to nothing, right? And it's native habitat, and it's native range, it's a food source, it does all of these good ecosystem processes. But here, it outcompetes our native, it decreases our biodiversity. So what does it do? Diasfolbin and diascorine are both, depending on what sources you read, either toxic or just super nasty tasting. It grows 6 to 8 inches every day. So it is prolific, right? Vegetative spread. So it can make itself, it can establish itself through multiple different methods. Dense cover, you can see my picture here. It just absolutely chokes out all your vegetation. No native predators, and it causes loss of biodiversity. So how do you know if it's her? She's got these big, beautiful heart-shaped leaves. You can check out some of my venation. Come talk to me after the presentation. I have so many air potato facts in my brain. I will talk to you another 20 minutes about air potatoes if you let me. But you can see the veins come from the bottom or from the leaf base, and they go towards the tip. All right, so, and notably, if you're there at the right time of year, you get those really cool bulbs on the back. Grows up to 65 feet, tubers underground. So like I said, it's really seasonal. It really starts growing when the temperatures are above 80 degrees. That's when it really kicks off. Bulbils around this time of year, you should start getting them. It does die back to the ground in the winter, but that tuber will stay underground, kick off again the next year. So where did it come from? When did it come over here? This is my Q map. I put it on here, but I don't love it. Depending on the sources you look at, it's from either Southeast Asia and West Africa, or just Southeast Asia, was moved to West Africa, and then it was moved to North and South America. However, look, she's not even on here. They forgot about Texas. So this is not my favorite map, but it gives you a little bit of an idea. And a lot of sources have said that it actually came to the United States with the slave trade, but everybody very confidently says it made it to Florida in 1905. I don't know why we know that number so well, but we did. All right, so how does it move around? How does it get established? One of the things about it is a beautiful plant. So every time I've talked to somebody about this plant, they're like, oh, you know what? My neighbor was growing that right over his mailbox. Or famously, Mercer sold it one time in a sale. So anyways, thumbs down. Sorry, Thelma. But also the bulbos, actually, I have a couple examples here, float as well, believe it or not, because they're pretty dense. And so a lot of times when I found it, it's been on either in dry creek beds or on the side, kind of steep slopes next to some sort of creek or river. So she's pretty modal. Her range, you'll see here, I've got, okay. Here I've got pink. This means that she's classified as a noxious weed. You can't own it, you can't sell it, you can't possess it. It's illegal, right? Everywhere else you see these little light blue. Those are the counties that it's been cited in, documented in, right? Now you can see that's our invasive. Our native has got a much wider range. She's all over the place. Talk just a little about our native. We found our native yesterday. Yeah, yesterday we found our native. It was really exciting. So we keyed her out and everything. This is her for sure. For sure, this is her. And she's got, I'll talk about this again in a second. That's a really cool rhizome. All right, so native versus invasive. Like I said, our native grows by this rhizome. Our invasive grows with the tuber underground. Native villosa, she does not grow the bulbils on the back. And she has opposite or whorled as well as alternate leaves, just alternate with the bulbifera. All right, so control efforts. How do we manage this invasive? Because we want to. This is Texas Invasives Task Force. You can see us pictured over here with Kathy Herrick, who is just a total powerhouse. Works up in the woodlands where they have some pretty bad cases of the bulbifera. I think especially because of horticultural plantings, like I said, it's real pretty and it grows super well. And so we work just digging things up, putting them in bags, taking care of that. So this is a before and after picture. You can see just 2 years worth of work of manual control here. And you can see in the first picture, we've got basically just bulbifera. The second picture here, we've got a bunch of our natives coming back. We've got Turk's cap, beautyberry, we've got winged elm in here. Just exciting to see, right? There's that biodiversity again. There is also biological control efforts. So this just means an introduced predator, right? So this is Lilioceras cheni. She was found in Nepal first, but they found her biotype in China as well. brought back to the United States, tested for about 5 years to make sure that the only thing this beetle was going to eat was Volvipara. So far, so good. They released 1 million of them in about 4,000 different locations. And she's self-sustaining, so it overwinters, comes back, continues to help control our population, which is really cool. What they do is they skeletonize the leaves. They eat the apical meristem, if that means anything to you. And they also skeletonize your leaves, so they'll eat in between all the veins. So it's a really kind of a distinctive pattern, which is interesting. So it's kind of a success story. They say about 1/3 of the attempted biocontrol methods work, and this is one of them, which is pretty cool. So larvae and adults eat up to 70% of the foliage. They reduce about 90% of the vine cover, 90% of the aerial bulbils, and 95% of mass. So pretty significant. They're not going to eradicate it. That's not how biocontrol works, but they are going to manage it, which is really nice. So you can see I've got some more before and afters over a 4-year process. This is in Florida. Here's another one in Louisiana. Just really making strides. They have a sort of a sister species who targets the bulbils. So this is her, and they're looking to make sure, again, she's very host specific. They can release her 1-2 punch it, get the leaves, get the meristems, get the bulbils, and at that point, that's a pretty hard fight to win. All right, so finally, I went a little bit rogue on this project. I took a little bit of my own time out because I love botany. And I went to see if I could find some air potato myself. A lot of the narrative I was hearing about air potato was centered up in the woodlands, which is fine and cool. And the woodlands is very lucky to have people like Kathy Herrick who have the time and the know-how to do invasives removal like this. But I wondered if there were other parts of Houston that were hit just as badly or almost as badly that wasn't lucky enough to have the resources to take care of that. So I'm from the east side, so I figured I'd look in the east side. You can see here's my little iNaturalist map. This is just sightings that people log. So I'll show you here. This area right here is kind of a bald spot. And that's also where I'm at. So I was like, well, let me look into it. So first, I chased down a couple of the iNaturalist sightings. I tried one at Armand Bio, couldn't find it. There's a couple I could just throw out. They were either on somebody's fence, and I thought they wouldn't appreciate me going in their yard and digging up their air potato. Or one was just like a pear, just sort of a picture of a pear. So I ended up following this one here. And that little triangle of 8 and 90 and 10. And so I'll give you a little zoom in. A little IMAX experience. So you can see here there was an oil pipeline, which is good, public land, so I didn't have to worry about getting shot. So I parked in this little corner here, and then I walked. And it's really overcast. It's the first day I did it. I was like, man, this might not go well. I might not find it. I'm in the middle of the woods. Walk about 5 feet into the oil pipeline, saw it right on the side. I was like, yes. And I was like, oh no. You know, it's a funny thing when you're looking for invasives is you don't really want to find it. So the next time I did it, it started to rain on me. I left, I came back. This next time I sort of traced all the way to where that pin was. So I walked down this way until right about here, there's kind of a dry creek bed called Seclusion Estates. And so at the bottom of the creek bed was just ton of different invasives. There's a load of Japanese climbing fern. We had colocasia, elephant ear, and we had air potato. I was on the phone with my mom and dad. I had little earbuds in, walking and talking to them. They were on a road trip. I was, whoa, I got so excited. I'm sure I interrupted somebody because I found this thing everywhere. And not only did I find it everywhere, I found skeletonized leaves everywhere. I knew what this meant. It was like, this doesn't look like an area that's been touched. So there's got to be the beetle here. And if the beetle's here, it wasn't released here. So I started looking around and looking for the beetle. Mom and dad just started waiting on the phone for me. Sorry, thank you. And I found it. I found a couple of them. And I even found a mating pair, which is kind of cool. And also, thank you for sitting on the phone listening to me wax poetic about, a mating pair of beetles. It's really fun to be my parents. It's really fun. So I contacted Florida, the Invasives Research Laboratory at Florida. They're the ones who ship out the beetles for the release. Contacted them to see where the releases had happened, if there had been one in the area. And the two closest releases had been in Kingwood and Seabrook. So about equidistant, about 25 miles. So somehow these beetles made their own way to this site, which is kind of awesome, kind of exciting. I was like, well, if I can find air potato that easy, I'm gonna keep looking. So I traced one of these specimens. Here's one I found from 1983, 2 minutes down the road from where I live. So I was like, all right, I'll go check it out. There it was. So either I'm like just the best ever at finding plants, or this thing is everywhere. And I wish I could tell you it's the first. I think it might be the second. But she's around, she's there. You can see some leaf damage. So hopefully that means something. Anyways, was able to fill in the iNaturalist gaps just a little bit, which was kind of exciting for me, kind of a pat on my back. And of course, I was able to pass on a lot of this information to Dr. Williams. So very cool, very fun. What can we do? You can join the Invasives Task Force, other invasives removal organizations. You can start one at Channelview, so I can do it with you. That would be great. You can also do this TexasInvasives.org training. It's really cool. It was really useful. I did it one time on a car ride. Or if you have a ton of air potato and you need to control it, you can contact the Florida Department of Agriculture and request the beetles. They can send them out to you. So pretty awesome. My works cited, my references. That's me. Any questions? Yeah.
So do freezes kill it back? Because I've heard that people up in Dallas grow it as an ornamental, but then it dies and they don't get the bulbs.
So they do, but it's got these really kind of incredible tubers, and they can stay underground for a good long time, and they weather that storm. If you take them and you put them in the freezer, it'll kill them. But with all of the insulation from the ground, it's pretty hard to get them. But you will see, like on my range map, it is limited, definitely limited by, the colder zones. Yeah.
And then I did look up some pictures of the flowers online, because it's just like little clusters of white flowers. So do you know what the pollinator is?
So with the air potato, there are from all of what I've found, there are no recorded flowering events for air potato in the US. For some reason, whatever it is about the climate, it just doesn't flower. People don't see the flowers. So it's by far vegetative spread is its most effective way of moving. I wish I could answer what pollinator it has in its native range, but I'm not sure. I'm sorry. But good question. Thank you. I can look it up. I'll ask Linda. Yes.
My backyard.
Have you got some?
Yep.
Okay. Ooh. Yeah.
I'm always throwing away those little.
Yeah. Yeah. Kathy was saying they can get like softball size. Sometimes they have to wear hard hats.
Yes, they're
It's crazy.
I've selling them these, it's big for grandkids to pick up. You give them a nickel a piece or something like that.
Yeah, there you go. That's good. That's very smart. Use your labor wisely. I love it. Cool. All right. Cool. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. I would like to introduce our next apprentice, which is Tiffany.
Hi, hello everyone, I'm Tiffany. I am the other intern at Mercer, and I will be also presenting about my internship and Chinaberry. So again, I'd like to give a big thank you to all the people that have helped sponsor this internship. Without them, we would not be here. And again, I would love to thank Carrie, Linda, Anita, and Zoe because I have learned a lot. I did not come into this internship knowing that much about plants, and I've learned a lot about that, and I'm very thankful for that. So now, a little bit more about me. As Linda said, I'm a graduate from Sconzo Early College and Lone Star. You can see my recent graduation photo. But I am also a longtime foster with Pups of Texas Rescue. Adorable little fosters I've done. And I am also a huge fan of bowling. I've been bowling almost every weekend of this internship. And because my bowling partner's not here, I will say I'm better than him. Don't tell him that. Another thing about me, through my high school, we had to do service. And my service site was Jesse Jones Park. Huge fan of that park, loved it. All 4 years I was there. I was on the green team. We worked with invasives, mostly Yopon and Chinaberry. I mean, not Chinaberry, Chinese tallow. Those are the two I worked with the most. So one of those people that loves taking nature pictures. Don't ask me to take a picture of yourself. I'll take a picture of your sky and the background of your trees. So as you can see, love sunsets. So now to get into our internship. Some of the things we've done is our bee survey. We've done herbarium collections, which I will go more in depth on. We've done field trips, seed surveys, collecting them, again, working in the herbarium and everything like that. Other stuff we've done, we've worked in our endangered species garden and our ramble area at Mercer Botanical Center. And we will just get rid of them. These pictures are from the day we had a horrible storm come through and our forestry floor lost a couple trees. We're very sad about that. But we were getting some done. And the bigger picture was a day's work of weeding in the rainbow. So some of the stuff we've done botany lessons. We did one with Charles Peterson and Paul Rowling at Little Cypress Creek Preserve. We did plant identification with Anita, and we learned how to key plants with it. And then with Jacob, our greenhouse manager, we did a note presentation, although I feel like I know less now after that presentation, but thank you. To get into our herbarium, you have heard so much about this whole presentation. It is a memorial of Dr. Larry Brown, and it is home to 52,000 species. So what is a herbarium? Basically, you can think of it as a museum for preserved plants. We will go out, collect plants from all over the world. We have some from even New Zealand, and we will preserve them, press them, get them sorted. And as you can see in these pictures, we will label them, where they come from, when they were collected, who collected them, their genus, their species, their family, and all that. And then from there, we will go and sort them in our cabinets by family, genus, and species. So as you can see, these are cabinet. The first picture is a cabinet before it was sorted, and then after, looking much nicer and neater. So as Zoe said, I got a little competitive and did a lot of sorting in our herbarium, and I got to a total of 4,500 species that I have sorted throughout my internship. It's very fun. So now to get into my intern research project. I'm doing Chinaberry, Malia Zenderach. But I first was going to start with Chinese tallow. And the reason why is while I was working at Jesse Jones, I worked with Chinese tallow a lot. I was like, this is easy, I got it. I want to go more in depth on it. Well, I went to the herbarium, and that family it is in is literally a cabinet and a half. So I was like, okay, they don't need Chinese tallow. They don't need someone to go in depth on that. Let's go in depth on something else. So I was going through looking at invasives, wanted to work with invasives, and I found Chinaberry, and it was toxic. I was like, that sounds like fun. I want to work with a toxic plant. So that is how I got it. And you might be wondering, why is my title Malia, not Camellia? The reason is I was struggling with the name for a very long time, and then one day on the radio, I heard songs, and it went Amelia, and I was like, oh my God, Amelia. Not Camellia. That makes so much more sense. So when I went to the herbarium, I noticed there's only 14. I was like, okay, this is good. It's toxic, it's invasive, and there's only 14 specimens in the herbarium. I got this. I will work on it. So some facts about it. It is in the Malia genus, which is flowering trees in the Maliaceae family. Malia is also Greek for ash tree. So the Maliaceae family is home to over 50 genera and about 500 species, the mahogany family. Trees usually have fragrant flowers and wood. It flowers are branching clusters, and it has usually enormous compound leaves in the shape of feather, as you can see from our Chinaberry demonstration that is slowly dying. So Maliaceae global range, as you can see on this map, you can find it everywhere, even if it's like in the ocean, but I'm sure those are islands. It is native everywhere. You can find it in every continent, country, anywhere you look, you can probably find it. So now to get back into Chinaberry. It originally is from Asia and Australia. It came to Europe in the 1600s for cultivation. And then in colonial America, it came in 1790 by a French botanist who was trying to explore our native plants here, but he brought it over to South Carolina, and farmhouses decided to use it as firewood because it's mahogany family. It's got good wood. Let's use it. So some more stuff. It is a deciduous tree. It's fast growing, multiple trunks, it's invasive, sucks. Mature trees usually have flaky brown bark, as you can see in the picture. And mature trees usually will have smoother, redder bark, like this tree right here that's, I believe, not even a year old. They usually have fragrant flowers, and they have round yellowish tan berries that are ripe usually in the winter. In the summer and spring, they're usually green, as you can see in my specimens up here. So more stuff. They thrive in warm climate. They love sandy soil, which I learned the hard way while going to collect my specimens. I am short. These trees grow to 50 feet tall. It was not fun trying to do it twice. I still did not learn twice that I need the ladder to get these specimens. It also takes 3 years to produce the fruit from these trees. So I am sorry to tell you this, but if you played with the berries of this tree as a child, you know, with your slingshots and everything, be lucky you were alive. Every part of this tree is poisonous. Every part of this tree is poisonous. The poison usually attacks the central nervous system. It is said that a Chinese myth says that unicorns and phoenixes are the only creatures that can eat the berries, and that dragons cannot. But there's also conflicting knowledge that wildlife can eat it, forage it, but definitely not humans. Cattle, dogs, and cats, those definitely cannot eat it. But again, it is very conflicting knowledge on what can and cannot eat it. So just don't try. Don't try eating it. It is fun though. Birds do eat it, and they will get toxic, not toxic, drunk off of it. So it's fun to watch them. Okay, so it's native range. Like I said, Asia and Australia is where it came from. As you can see, the purple is where it's been introduced. In the United States, it has been introduced between Virginia all the way to Florida, 7 to 10 zones. Usually grows in tropic and subtropic areas, so basically anywhere it is tropical, you will find it. So while I was collecting my specimen, like I said, I went to Sam Houston after my orientation, learned the hard way. I definitely needed a ladder. After 12 hours at an orientation, it was not fun trying to get a tree to give you specimens, but we got it done. And then when we went to Little Cypress Creek with Charles and Paul, we found another tree, and we even went through the painstaking task of getting some fruit specimens that would be had them. So again, that was very difficult, very slopey, not easy. So economic uses, because there is literally nothing that supposedly can eat it that we know of. It is a good insecticide. It can repel moss from stored clothing. It can deter insects from fruit and dried beans. Leaves can usually be used as, if you rub them on your skin, it can be used to keep fungal infections away. Again, it is a poisonous plant, but it also is known to have some good uses. It can kill endoparasites, but please don't try that because it is in the dose, and if you use the wrong dosage, that is not going to work. So basically, it is deadly. It has also been known in southern Italy to be used for rosary beads, and other countries that have used it for jewelry in general. And then, of course, the mahogany family, so you gotta have furniture out of the wood. So wildlife utilization. There is nothing that can eat it, but the flowers are attractive to honeybees. Sadly, if that's the only thing they get their nectar from, it will make the honey bitter. So unless you like bitter honey, there's no point in trying to harvest that honey. Some other stuff, its impact, it develops quickly, forms dense thickets, it can choke out native plants, produces monocultures, and reduces the biodiversity in general, and takes out basically anything native around it, kind of like Ewerling, just wipes it all out. The leaf litter is usually known to raise the pH in soils and cause native plants to not be able to germinate and seed around there. And then again, it has no natural predators that we know of, so there's not really anything that can biologically take control over it. So some control methods, because it has no biological control. Manual control is effective in early stages, basically. Don't try to do it to 50-foot tree, it's not gonna work. You can dig up the seedlings, please dig up every part of that tree, it will grow. You do not, trimming will also work, but again, that is gonna be a lot of maintenance, and you're gonna have to do it quite often. So basically herbicides is the most effective way, and basically the only way that will probably work, but you have to apply it everywhere on the tree, and you also need to do it multiple times, or else it's just not gonna work. Nothing ever works once, you gotta do it over and over and again before it starts working. So these are my references, some images, and my presentation. Questions? Yes.
Are these Chinaberries, are they sold like in nurseries? Are they considered even though they're poisonous and so forth, are they considered a desirable tree in the landscape?
They are, because they're ornamental, they're very pretty. They just, so yes, they are sold, but they also, like the air potato, they are invasive, but they're not like that super highly invasive where you don't want to sell anywhere. So people, it's toxic and it's invasive, but it's not at the levels of where it's like, you can't sell this. So people sell it because it's pretty, and as long as you don't let your kids or any human there or pets and stuff like that eat it, you're fine. It's a pretty tree. Yes.
Tiffany,
Mm-hmm.
do you know if there was any damage or did it knock the trees back during the freeze that we had a couple of years ago? I noticed on the map that none of the northern, like Canada, northern US, Siberia, none of that had any Chinaberries in it. So do you think that Uri might have knocked it back a little bit?
I believe it did, because it seriously does not like colder climates. It wants to live in that tropical, but it also, although it loves sandy soil, it does not like being in too much water. If it's in too much water, it'll start dying, and it just can not help doing that. So yes.
Is there any evidence of that? Do you know?
I'm not quite sure. There probably is out there. I don't know off the top of my head, but based off of all the research I've done, I've seen it many times. They don't like water. They'll be in good soil that can get rid of water and let it flow easily, but they don't like just sitting in water. Any other questions?
Are there any other common names for this kind besides Chinaberry?
Yes, there's like over 8 of them. There's a bunch. In Texas, there's the umbrella tree, because there's a Texas naturalized version of it. And it looks like an umbrella, so it basically got the name umbrella tree. There's, I believe, pearl or bead of India, and India it's very known for making jewelry with it. They love making jewelry with it, so it's a very known tree in India. And I can't remember what the other names were, but again, there's like a bunch of different common names for the tree.
I feel like I've seen it for sale, but not under the name Chinaberry. So if they're selling the tree, what they're calling it, that's a known term.
If it's that way, I would, most common name, like selling, would probably be Chinaberry, because that's just the first name that comes to mind. I don't know what other name it would possibly be sold under. Any other question?
question, but I had a comment. We had asked once before why some plants were considered invasive and people weren't able to sell them, and others were considered invasive and they were. And it has to do with the agricultural industry. If it's something that's going to disrupt agriculture and making money from crops, then you're prohibited from actually selling it. So, but if it's something that's just going to be ornamental in the yard and is not going to take over cropland, then they're free to sell it.
Yes.
Is there any beneficial use of its toxicity? I mean, could I make a motion that we keep the squirrels out of my garden?
I mean, it depends. You can use it as an insecticide. So there's a bunch of different research on like what you could use it for. It's known mostly for insecticide and then just repelling anything. And then on human, it's just mostly known for killing endoparasites. So it probably can, but again, it is all in the dose. It's like every plant, it is toxic at some level. Just depends on how much you use.
My question's kind of for Caroline. Does anybody on the Zoom have questions?
Oh, let's see.
That is a good question. Thank you, Suzanne.
I've always seen free comments, so
That's
I
right.
haven't seen anything.
Okay, so does anyone online have questions for either of our presenters tonight? You can unmute and let us know.
Oh, there's a fourth comment. Someone commented.
Let's see what our chat says. Here we go. It says. Hi, Suzanne. Can someone unmute and talk to me to see if we can hear you? Oh, that's right. The project at Rosenberg is getting lots of Facebook love. So that was about the bird lawn project. There's actually another project near us. And we don't want to give them the vote. The Malia that are growing on the Spring Creek riparian area did not suffer from Winter Storm Uri, sadly. So Diana would know because she works along Spring Creek. So Uri did not tamp that down. Great job to both presenters. So yes, no more questions online. Not, at least not in the chat. And no one has unmuted to ask a question. So thank you so much.
That is the case. I will hand it over to our dear Carrie.
You go, darling.
I just want to say thank you to our interns, Zoe and Tiffany. They worked so hard this summer on these presentations and sweating their body parts off outside. So I want to give them a round of applause. I also want to thank everybody who's here to support them in person and on Zoom. This is wonderful, great turnout. We're really glad you guys came. We also, again, want to take a chance to thank our sponsors and our very generous donors who have made all this possible. Without them, we wouldn't be here. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something, and you are more than welcome to come up and take a look at our interns' specimens, and they will answer any questions that you guys might have. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.